Rick and Morty is weird, okay? This show is bizarre. And it seems like there's nothing Rick and Morty is afraid to do. Every episode can go anywhere at any point. One second, Rick and Morty are chilling at home on the couch. The next second, they're fighting toxic versions of themselves on a roof in the city. They just lead a crazy life. And despite how crazy every episode of Rick and Morty is, what's crazier is the episodes that we don't see. That's right, Rick and Morty is a television show after all, and when it comes to television, there's a lot that gets left on the cutting room floor. Whether it's episodes that never made it past their pitch, episodes that were scrapped entirely, or just ideas they wish they had done. When it comes to Rick and Morty, there's still so much we haven't seen. And that's what I want to talk about today. Welcome back to Roundtable, I am Nemo, and today we're talking about these scrapped Rick and Morty episodes that you've never seen. Let's start with straight up scrapped episodes. I found out about a lot of these ideas from Dan Harmon doing various interviews for the show, in which he talks about episodes that they wanted to make but never saw the light of day. The first scrapped episode centered on the concept of a bookalizer. In this episode, Rick would have invented a bookalizer, which is a device that would allow them to go in books. Not too clever with the naming. Our characters would have ended up going into a shitty novel written by Jerry when he was younger, where presumably antics would ensue. This is such a funny concept, and I could just imagine how the episode would play out. I'm sure Rick would have made fun of the name bookalizer, they would have made some meta joke, because, you know, meta jokes are hilarious and not overused at all. Don't at me. I would have loved to see whatever this book that Jerry wrote was. He probably wrote himself as the hero, so there'd be some sort of Chad Jerry in the book. God, it could have been amazing. Believe it or not, this episode ended up being developed and turned into the Mad Max episode. That just shows you how much something can change from concept to execution. Another sort of scrapped episode was the idea of a Game of Thrones episode. I say kind of scrapped because the way Dan Harmon mentioned it is that he would still be kind of willing to make this episode in the future. Talking about the episode, he said, "What leaps to mind is doing another Citadel episode or some dimension where there are factions of people that play homage to that Game of Thrones style in 22 minutes while getting laughs." So this would have been like a classic Rick and Morty parody episode. They've already parodied Jurassic Park and, like I said earlier, Mad Max. So this episode would have just fit right in. And it could still happen. I'm not saying this is completely out the window, but with everything that's happened with Game of Thrones recently, I'm not sure they would want to. Despite that though, Harmon had a lot of great stuff to say. Talking about the Game of Thrones creators, he said, "It would be cool to work with those guys. I love those guys. They've been so cool to our show in every interview, and I've been watching this show obsessively for 7 years." Did he see the finale? Regardless, it's good to see all this positivity in the creative community. And who knows, maybe we'll see this episode one day. Now let's talk about some scrapped Morty's Mind Blowers skits, and there are a lot. Clip show episodes like Morty's Mind Blowers is a great way for the show to utilize as many ideas as they've had, usually smaller ideas that wouldn't fit as a whole episode, or just cool concept, and Rick and Morty has so many of those. But despite how many skits this episode had, there's still a lot left on the cutting room floor. This all comes from a Twitter thread from the great writer Dan Gutterman, where he talked about some of the ideas that they had for the episode that never got used, including Morty as an old man helping his granddaughter with her homework. This would have been interesting, and we maybe could have seen Morty as like a Rick type character. Another idea was cake stairs, which is an ambiguous idea he refused to explain that both him and Dan Harmon loved. Though I guess we can only imagine what cake stairs are, I don't know. There was a pretty fleshed out idea that entailed Rick and Morty dressed as parakeets, wearing shock colors, singing in a parakeet concert, looking terrified. I don't know if they were being held hostage or what, but I would pay to see that. God, I wish I could see that now. Another idea entailed Morty being turned into a living painting and being auctioned off. It feels very sci-fi, it feels very Rick and Morty, and I feel like they would have done like a good commentary on like the art community in a way. While some of these ideas made a lot of sense, like a fake premium cable intro for Mind Blowers, others seemed a little more abstract, such as the idea of Rick falling in love with a fire truck or flipping a coin at the edge of the universe, which I don't even know what that means. And finally, there's a fully scripted pitch for a concept called Thank You Planet. In it, Rick and Morty are sitting on a relaxing alien beach when an alien waiter brings over a platter of fresh fruit. But when Morty goes to tip him, Rick warns him not to, saying that gratitude was never introduced in their society and they wouldn't know what to do. Later, Morty accidentally thanks the bartender, who begins to panic, realizing that no one's ever thanked him before, and then he just starts going on a rampage, setting things on fire, and just causing massive chaos, leading to Rick and Morty just ditching the planet in this fiery chaos that Morty caused by thanking a bartender. That's such a Rick and Morty idea, I'm not even kidding you guys, I can see that in my head right now. I wish they had animated this one, because honestly, it made me laugh harder than like a lot of the other stuff in Morty's Mind Blowers, but hey, that's just me. Either way, this Twitter thread is a complete goldmine, and it just shows you how funny the writing alone on Rick and Morty is. Now let's talk about scrapped plot-heavy episode ideas. This comes from Twitter post by writer Mike McCannon, who went online publicly saying that they made an effort to completely avoid fan theories. He starts off by saying, "The fastest way to make sure your Rick and Morty fan theory is wrong is to tell me about it, because I'll make sure it never happens." He goes on to say, "It's no fun if somebody guesses a secret plotline. I'd rather be surprising than prove someone guessed right. Also, I'm a jerk." So basically he's saying that if anyone figured out Rick and Morty, they changed it because they didn't want people to figure it out, and he doesn't want it to be a show that people just sit around waiting to see if they were right. He's trying to keep people on their toes, I guess. I mean, he's pretty blunt about it, going on to say that he's done it before and he'll do it again until he's dead. I'm kind of half and half on this subject, because if you have a dedicated fan base that's looking into your show and trying to figure it out and analyze it, I think that's a really good thing. But at the same time, I can imagine it being frustrating if you're trying to surprise surprise people. And it has to be pretty frustrating to keep up with all these fan theories and just change the show around it. But with the amount of fan theories of Rick and Morty on YouTube, there's gotta be countless scrapped episodes and plot lines. I'm not saying everybody figured out the truth of Rick and Morty, or if there's even a truth at all, but it's crazy to think that at least one of these fan theories was right for a second, and they had to change it. Who knows how many scrapped episodes and finales and plot lines that we had here, just because some idiots on the internet wanted to make a theory. It's also kind of scary and sobering to know that every Rick and Morty YouTube theory is technically not true, because if it was true, then they would change it to be not true instantly. This is too much. I'm gonna keep making theories, man. They're fun. Unless they want us to think they're changing it, so we stop theorizing. That's it. This is a Rick and Morty theory now. Let's switch it up. It's crazy to think that we have some of these now, but we have some season 5 scrapped episode ideas. This all comes from a series of Instagram posts by Dan Harmon of the aftermath of a writing exercise where they basically just wrote down every idea they had on a sticky note, and he shared some of the more entertaining sticky notes with us. There's a little too many to list off here, but some of the standout ones included Barknado, the People's Basketball Court, and Rick discovers the 11th commandment. God, I hope at least that last one finds its way into a finished episode. We've talked about some scrapped episodes, but now let's talk about some scenes you've never seen. Rick and Morty has had its fair share of deleted scenes, whether it was cut for time or a scene was slightly changed, and some of them are pretty interesting. In the episode Anatomy Park, we see the giant homeless man floating over the world. The news reports make a comment about what I was trying not to think about, and we see a clever joke about like this giant shadow looming over the reporter. You can figure it out, okay? But in an unused original version of that scene, it was a lot more graphic. You actually got to see this homeless man's private parts plowing through land like this giant mass, and it's just so much worse. I can see why they changed it though. This is probably like a censoring thing. And I think it's funnier if it's more subtle. God, there's something about the bluntness of just a giant, like 50-foot dick plowing through a field that it just feels like Rick and Morty. In the episode where Rick and Morty get prosecuted by Giant's Court, there's actually a lot more to the scene of them getting prosecuted and sent to jail. We basically get to see a montage of them going through the motions of it, but just really tiny, getting picked by a witness in line, having their fingerprints stamped, but since they're so tiny, they just use their whole bodies. Rick and Morty are completely covered in black ink, and then we get like a pretty edgy joke about the cop wanting to shoot them at that point. When I first saw this, I was like, oof, oh no. Maybe that's a little too far, buddy. It's a pretty racy joke, and I don't know if this is like bordering blackface or not. I can see why they scrapped it. We then see a shot of the cop showing that he only had a squirt gun, them getting searched with tweezers, their mugshots taken, tiny prison clothes stitched, and police officers attacking them with their fingers. This is a funny montage overall besides that kind of racy joke. We'll just move on from that. But I can see why they cut it. If they were scrapped for time, this montage didn't add anything to the episode. It was just basically a bunch of jokes, so I can see why they take it out. In the original scene from Rick Potion number 9, when they find their alternative dead selves and slip into their place, it was, believe it or not, a lot more graphic. In the show, Rick explains the situation to Morty holding his dead body. But in this original version, he's like walking around the garage picking up his various body parts, one that looks like his testicles. I don't know for sure. It was just a lot more graphic, and I'm sure if you fully animated this, it would kind of be disgusting. Now, I know the scene overall is like insanely dark, but still, I can see why they softened this a little bit. There's a lot of scrapped interdimensional cable bits too that are extremely funny. One about an unrelatable Jerry Seinfeld who has Mexican bones in his basement.
What's the deal with all these Mexican bones under our house? Why do we keep burying Mexicans in the basement?
Again, this is another idea that I think is way funnier than some of them in the actual episode. There's a version where Rick ends up killing alternative Jerry after he professes her love to her. I can see why they took this part out because it undermines what is actually a pretty emotional scene for the show. There was a joke for like a butthole ice cream parlor, but it wasn't that funny in my opinion. An alternate Steely skit where he just looks different and also rips somebody's heart out of their chest and throws them out the window. And finally, an alternate little bit scene where he harasses somebody in the bathroom. Maybe this was too weird. I don't know why they wouldn't go with this. Maybe it just wasn't what the skit was about. I have no idea. But aside from that, there's like whole scenes that just never got made. There's my personal favorite where Morty accidentally creates a dinosaur by just touching something in Rick's garage and chaos ensues. It's like very early Rick and Morty. It's a funny scene. It's one of my favorite scenes ever, and I'm so sad it was never fully animated.
You made a dinosaur!
What? I made a dinosaur!
You made a dinosaur!
Oh, I made a dinosaur!
Oh, Morty! What did you think was gonna happen, Morty?
There's also this very long, almost feels like a skit, where Morty goes to Rick terrified because Jessica had just been in a car accident. At first, Rick doesn't want to go because he's watching TV, but Morty kind of begs him and he agrees to. He then tricks down Morty and injects him in Jessica, and you think, oh, it's gonna be like a whole Magic School Bus thing where he helps save her, only for it to turn out to be a trap as Rick just sits down and continues watching his sitcom on the hospital TV. Maybe they took this out because they didn't want to show Rick being that mean to Morty. It's kind of twisted, but it could have been scrapped for 1,000 other reasons. It's a really funny scene, and I'm sad that it wasn't fully animated, but I'm glad we get to see it in this form. Look, as many weird ideas as Rick and Morty has, and it has a lot, there'll always be some that just get left out, scrapped or cut for time, deleted and removed, but at least they see the light of day at some point, even if it's on a DVD special feature or an interview. And if anything, this just got me more excited for the new stories they're going to be telling in season 4, and I guess even the new deleted scenes that they're probably gonna have. Not every idea in Rick and Morty can be used, but I can guarantee you every idea in Rick and Morty is Weird. But as always, I want to know what you guys think. Did you like these scenes and episode ideas? Did you not? Let us know in those comments down below. Or tweet to us at Roundtable Vids, or me at It's Retro Nemo, or even check out my YouTube channel, Retro Nemo. If you want to consider helping out the Roundtable, you can consider becoming a member of the channel or support us on Patreon and get exclusive access to scripts and avatars. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share it, and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content, guys. I'm Nemo. This is a Rick and Morty video, and I'll see you next time. Peace.